Good evening, my party people. I just got back from watching Marvel's Thunderbolts with an asterisk. And, right off the bat, I will say that that asterisk is thoroughly needed, considering that this has virtually nothing to do with the Thunderbolts from the Marvel Comics. Um, a lot of people have been describing this movie as like Marvel's actual answer to the Suicide Squad films over at DC, and I would say that that is conceptually and functionally the most accurate way to describe this movie. I would even go a step further and say that it's kind of made of leftovers, like an ingredient soup, where loose plot threads and characters that they clearly didn't know what they wanted to do with kind of just landed into the script together. And it sounds like a recipe for a messy, unfocused movie, but it's actually incredibly well put together. The cast, fantastic. The performances are amazing. Characters that I didn't really care too much for, like Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and even John Walker in Falcon and Winter Soldier, get a lot more to do here. It's kind of disappointing in the case of Ghost saying that like she doesn't really seem to hang out with Ant-Man anymore, but hey, that that really has no impact on the movie. What does impact it though is the chemistry between the characters. I've heard a lot of people say that like Bob is a standout, Red Guardian is a standout, Bucky's a standout. They pretty much all stand out at certain points, really except for Ghost, but John Walker, Bucky, Yelena, Bob, Alexei, they all shine so bright when they're doing their thing, and they kind of bounce off of each other. Their personalities clash really hard at the beginning, kind of the same way that the Avengers did, but when you're watching Avengers Endgame, they try really hard to like convince you that the Avengers were a family, that they all loved each other before, the big thing in Civil War happened. You never really feel that because they spent so little time together. This team in particular, though, they really do capture that feeling of a screwed up family of weirdos, the same way that the Guardians of the Galaxy managed to. And by the end, I really loved every character. It's interesting because it's like, I want to say that it's a culmination of stuff from phases, 4 and 5, but it's in a strange way. Like, okay, so Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, Valentina, I never cared much for her when she was in, like, Falcon and Winter Soldier, her brief appearance in Black Widow, and then she didn't really do anything in Black Panther 2 except for betray Ross. She kind of just felt like this diet Marvel version of Amanda Waller, but here, she really shines. She kind of steps into that, admittedly Amanda Waller-esque type of position, but she plays it really well this time because the script actually decides to focus on her. It's amazing what can happen when the writers actually care about utilizing a character. But speaking of utilizing characters, I do want to talk a little bit about Bob specifically. It's no secret that Bob is the Sentry, right? There were rumors going around for a long time that Steven Yeun was supposed to play the Sentry in this film, and as much as I like Steven, I'm glad that he didn't. I know that he wasn't able to because he had to do Mickey 17, but I'm honestly glad that we got Lewis Pullman in this role because he embodied it so well and he played it with the perfect level of like awkwardness at the beginning and like false confidence and complexity that the script really demands of the character. And I won't say that Steven Yeun couldn't have done it, but I will say that I can't see anyone else in that role. Bob was perfect. And when it comes to the Sentry, he's a character that I don't really know too much about. I know that like amnesia plays heavily into him. I know he has an alternate side called the Void, which was portrayed beautifully here. There's this really cool effect whenever the Void is on screen. I won't talk too much about it, but he's so visually striking, and it's fairly intimidating. And I just wonder like how they did it on set, or well, if there was anything that they did on set to make it easier to do in the editing, like with Dr. Manhattan and the Watchmen. But ultimately, I won't know that until the movie hits Blu-ray or something like that. But he was fantastic. He was a standout. I also want to talk about the direction of the film, just because, like, and I wish I remembered who directed it, but this is like the most sauce that an MCU movie has had since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And before that, since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, you know, like, and like, this is the most personality and dynamicism that an MCU movie has had in years, in actual years. It's not a stretch to say that it's one of my favorite Marvel movies, especially of the recent bunch, because it's not even just good by Marvel standards. I just think that it's legitimately a really well-made film. I think as far as action movies are concerned, it's one of the better ones to come out in the last decade. It's also one of the best Marvel movies to come out in the last decade. It's also funny. Now, I will admit that not every single joke landed. There was one that did make me cringe. That's one that I can remember out of a few dozen that landed perfectly. I think that with all of the big personalities that are at play here, with Yelena, with Alexei, with Bucky Barnes, with John Walker, I think it all comes together really well by the end. You start out with a bunch of asshole type characters that you're like, it's hard to root for them because they are so unpleasant towards each other and towards Bob. But as those layers start to get peeled back in a very interesting fashion, due to the nature of the characters that we have here in the movie, you start to warm up to them. You know, they don't start out as heroes, but by the end, they are. And it's funny to say it that way. The ending of this movie really took me by surprise, and it hits really hard because it's like something pretty major happens, and then boom, credits. And I've heard some people say that it needed more time to sit and to, you know, marinate after it happened, but I don't know, I think a smash cut to the credits after that was perfect. I think it was really well executed because it is a shock to the characters involved and to the audience. And rather than like holding us there, it's like, alright, we're done. We'll see you next year for Avengers Doomsday. Assuming that it does still come out next year. I'm not entirely sure that it will. But with Bucky being involved, I do want to highlight him as well because it was nice to see him acting like himself again, I suppose. The thing with Bucky is that he was obviously at his coolest in Captain America the Winter Soldier. He was this Terminator type character that was just mowing through people. He was just this unstoppable machine that accomplished his mission no matter what. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of room for character there. So once the decision was made to not have Bucky stay like that anymore, a lot of his sauce got taken away as well. In Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he's barely even got a suit. He has yet to even receive a new name. You know? Yeah, like they called him White Wolf when he lived in Wakanda, but he doesn't have a White Wolf costume, so he's not the White Wolf. You know, it's tough to see him kind of like become less and less interesting the more that they try to develop him. But here, you kind of get the best of both worlds. He goes back into that mode that you see him in Winter Soldier, where he's efficient, he's cool, he's getting shit done, but he is also still a human being with character traits, and he is still trying to be a politician, which is picked up from the most recent Captain America film. It's a little difficult to walk that line, but I think that it was done really well here. Alexei, David Harbour is just incredible. I think he has the best comedic timing out of like any actor in the industry right now, but he also has a lot of heart. Alexei's a very complicated character, and I remember like when the poster for this movie first came out, it seemed to me like it was just going to be like Black Widow 2, basically. And it is, you know, a follow-up to Yelena's character from that movie, but I think that that was the right decision to make. If we need a new linchpin for the future of the MCU, the way that it was Tony Stark, if we need someone new to focus on, I don't think that Yelena is a bad choice. I think Florence Pugh delivers a fantastic performance in this movie. It's the best Yelena has ever been, between Hawkeye, Black Widow, and now this. She's at her best here. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is at her best here. Wendell Pierce is pretty good here as well. I didn't know he was going to be in the movie. It's funny because he's going to be Perry White in a couple months. Met him one time. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of Suits. So seeing him here, it's funny to watch him play his character pretty much the exact same way that he played Robert Zane, just in a different job. That was a nice unexpected treat. But like the editing of the movie is incredible. The camera work is incredible. The stunt work is great. The CGI does get jarring sometimes. When you notice it, you really notice it. But it's never enough to pull me out of the movie like it was sometimes in Captain America Brave New World. The action here, probably a little bit better than it was in Brave New World. The funny thing is, though, when it was revealed that it would be Sentry as the bad guy, or like as a you know, focal antagonist, it's like, okay, well, the strongest person on your team is Bucky. You know, how are you supposed to take down somebody like Sentry? He is one of the more powerful Superman parody type characters. I think that the approach that was taken was appropriate for the story being told, and it's a subversion of the genre in some ways that is actually really welcome. Sometimes I prefer that the day isn't saved by punching, you know? That was something that I appreciated about Captain America Civil War, is that Zemo isn't just like, you know, beaten up and taken to jail. Zemo wins. You know, whenever there's an unconventional resolution to the central conflict of a superhero movie, I always really appreciate that. Like in Winter Soldier, when Steve refused to fight Bucky and he came to his senses on his own. That's the kind of stuff that I live for. The punching and the kicking and the caramel is fun, but it gets old, you know? And so back to back, it's been resolved with alternative methods, and I appreciate that very deeply. There's a lot of jokes going around about like how MCU Spider-Man just doesn't ever get involved when New York is in trouble. Honestly, he couldn't have helped, especially with the particular story that was being told here. Nothing he could have done. Sentry, though, when he's on screen and he's using his powers and he's doing his thing, he looks really cool. I was concerned that he might like look a little silly, but like in the movie, in the context of the scene, I think he's awesome. I think he's great. And I do look forward to seeing him in the future if they do decide to continue to utilize him. We'll see what happens with that. But just overall, you know, there's really nothing I didn't enjoy about this movie. Oh, Taskmaster. He's in this movie, huh? With Bucky, though, it's kind of funny because he's literally the only character in this movie that's from Phase 1. So it's kind of like having a responsible adult in the room whenever Bucky's there, like the only one that's talking some sense and is you know, doing anything that makes any sense. I really appreciate that about Bucky. He's just so tired. I will say though, with the resolution of the main conflict of the film, it did leave me wanting a little bit more. There's this interesting mechanic where we get to see like the worst memories that these characters have and like what haunts them. With certain characters we know, but there are other characters involved that I would have really liked to see what their thing was, but the movie just either isn't interested in showing that or just simply doesn't have enough time. Maybe it's on the cutting room floor. There's really no way to know, but it is a little disappointing that that was left out. There was something else I wanted to discuss. Oh yeah, because I did want to say, like, towards the beginning when Bob first enters the screenplay, he has this quirk about his character where he's kind of like, you ever play like Metal Gear Solid 2 or like Ultimate Alliance or like any game where you have an escort mission and you have to deliver an NPC from one place to another and keep them alive, but it seems like they have a death wish and all they ever want to do is get in the way. It was kind of like that. It was reminiscent of that, and the frustration that the characters felt is very akin to the frustration that I felt when I was playing missions like that. So I really appreciated that aspect of it. I thought it was really funny. I don't know if that's going to hit the same way for other people that it did for me, but that's like the feeling that I got when I was watching it. And I know that this is kind of running long for a video about Marvel's Thunderbolts. Goodness gracious. But it's just like, it's just difficult because like it's been a long time since I've had this much to say about a Marvel movie. And I know that we do this whole MCU is dead, MCU is back thing just about every time a new thing comes out. I think like with almost every other movie, people say, oh, Marvel's got its groove back now. To me, that means it never lost its groove, right? I will say that the TV shows have brought down the average Marvel viewing experience for sure. But as far as the movies are concerned, post-Endgame, I mean, I liked Shang-Chi, I liked Spider-Man No Way Home. Everybody liked No Way Home, at least at the time that it first came out. People have changed their minds on it since then. But we were all there, and we were all tuned in. You know, most of everybody liked Guardians of the Galaxy 3, most people like Deadpool and Wolverine, and now most people like this, which leaves what? Black Widow, Eternals. A lot of people like Doctor Strange as well. But yeah, that leaves Black Widow, Eternals, Thor, Love and Thunder. Oh, Black Panther 2 was really good too. So then that leaves Ant-Man and the Wasp and the Marvels. That's like 5 of the last 11 or 12 MCU movies that people really didn't like, and that's not a great average. But you look at, you know, phases 1 through 3, people don't look back on Iron Man 2 or 3 very favorably, or Avengers Age of Ultron, or Thor the Dark World. A lot of people have changed their minds on Thor Ragnarok, and even Captain America the First Avenger. Ant-Man and the Wasp, you know, people still have mixed feelings on Captain Marvel. Like, the ratio has always been not great, right? The problem is just that it's started to feel like there's a massive lack of focus, and I will say this movie does not fix that. It does not solve that problem. I'll tell you what problem it does solve, though: post-credit scenes. A lot of post-credit scenes after Endgame have felt pointless. Like, they don't set anything up, like they don't lead anywhere, especially because, you know, many, many years later, a lot of them haven't even been touched on in the slightest. This one is something that is going to be addressed in a couple months. I really appreciate that. I missed that era, where, like, the thing in the post-credit scene is coming within the next 365 days. You don't have to wonder about it too long. It's not something that's 4 or 5 years down the pipeline, or may never get picked up again, like the X-Men movies struggle with. It's something that is impending, and you're gonna get your answer soon. I really appreciate that. I think the movie's well directed, well edited, well shot, well acted, well choreographed. The effects are good, the music is good, the acting is good. Everything about the movie's good. What would I give it? Let's see. I think I gave Captain America like a 7, so I would give this an 8.5. I'm going to see it again, though, in a couple days, so we'll see if that goes up or comes down. In the meantime, though, 8.5. I strongly recommend this movie. If I was going to give it a letter grade, I'd give it an A or a B+, something like that. I don't know. Go see the movie. Take your friends. And if you have seen the movie already, I forgot how I do this. If you have seen the movie already, let me know what you thought about it, and then let me know what upcoming Marvel movie you are the most excited for. Down the pipeline, we have Fantastic Four, we have Avengers Doomsday, and we have Spider-Man Brand New Day. That's like the next 3. And then after Avengers Secret Wars in 2027, we really have no clue, you know? So we're in this spot where anything could happen. I'm not going to sit here and stall. Okay, video's over. Get out of here, go watch the movie, and then come back and rewatch the video and see if you agree with me. Anyway, see you later.